Ahi, Chapter 21, Homecoming. Day 12, Month 7, Day 30, 9 a.m. The continent of Bertame, region of Erogas, Praga. Praga has changed a lot in the years that Ahi had been away. The first major disaster occurred weeks after his departure. Peter the bully who had stabbed Ahi had been the lucky one, and like you don't remember, Peter and his friend had gotten in a fight with Ahi because Ahi had stolen from them, and Ahi had inscribed certain stolen items with the presence of Sorrentine. And whenever a person saw this presence within the item, the imprint was passed on into their eyes like a curse. Peter had died before getting possessed by the thing he had seen, and he had stared into the darkness, and this darkness had stared back. And while preparing the body, the priest handling the funerals had stared into the child's eyes. And the presence was thus passed from the dead child to the priest's eyes, and it was a new presence that had yet to be a house dream. And had the priest had any true powers, it would have not been possessed so easily. And Peter's funeral was quite a fiasco, with the mumbling and the walking on the roof and the flying, and the priest's body broke down after a few hilarious hours worthy of the exorcism. And he could not handle the strain of the presence, and when the priest's body broke down, the presence took to haunting the cemetery, and he did not know any better, and thankfully got adopted by a traveling necromancer. Things grew quiet for about a year. To prevent any further incidents, Iago had the wisdom to collect and seal away anything that Ahi had owned, and he also closed up at his bedroom for the rest of the world, and he even went as far as putting up a brick wall. And with the coming of spring, people started leaving the city. The flamenca and Ahi incident had sobered up their state, and they did not like to live in a town surrounded by feral dragons. As of now, only key people live in town, and many other houses have been abandoned. Iago was paid by the berserkers to stay and maintain the outpost, and instead of villagers, the township had taken on a more martial tone. And the main residents were now a few lords, their serfs, and 30 soldiers and their family members. And for safety purposes, a stone wall had been erected around the town, and it was symbolic in a sense that it did not keep the feral dragons from getting within. And this new structure, instead of keeping them at bay, attracted their attention. Like rats scattered in the street, one would see a dozen feral dragon babes crawling about. And since they could not do nothing about the feral dragons, the townspeople eventually got used to them. You can get used to anything with time. Some even started feeding them and keeping them as dangerous little pets, and from time to time there was an incident. However, these incidents were resolved without any casualties. The women children who were born during this time shared a special understanding with the feral dragons, and via their mediation, life with feral dragons became somewhat tolerable, and the human had something that may be called peace. Outsiders who visited the strange town used to think the humans there had done the impossible. They were foolish to believe that they had tamed feral dragons. Only the berserkers knew the south truth. It was the feral dragons who had tamed the humans. This strange behavior on the feral dragon's part was only noted on those who lived near the township. The rest of the dragons went about their lives without bothering about their human neighbors. The feral dragons were a peculiar bunch. Unlike other territorial beasts, they did not go on to slay any random intruder. They only reacted when their instincts warned them of true danger, and its outsiders became emboldened by their supposed pacifism. The feral dragons would enterprise around the invader's territory, and if the invader had to go to a target, then they would be wiped out in an instant. And if they not attack, the feral dragons would keep on provoking them. And if nothing happened, the feral dragons would consider enemy territory part of their homestead. And for this reason, feral dragon babes now walk the streets of Praga as if they owned the place. The only solution to this problem was to move, get killed by a feral dragon, or wait until the little dragonlets grew bored of the place. As of now, only the baby dragons like to play around in the human town. The adult feral dragons had no interest in humans and their habitations. For them, the humans were akin to ants, making their tiny little frail homes, and the children were the only ones who found the human town remotely interesting. And this whole problem started with Eleanor, and after Ahi left, she was very lonely, and she took to venturing into the forest in search of Ahi. And the feral dragons paid her no mind, since she was so scrawny and weak, and not even a starving wolf would take her seriously. And she developed a bold sort of friendship with the baby dragon who used to fight with Ahi. And this tiny feral dragon was missing his playmate, and without Ahi he had no one to train with, and he took to following Eleanor around and keeping her out of trouble. And he was drawn to her since a bit of Ahi's scent still lingered on her, and this scent was only perceived by the keen sense of the pharaoh dragons, and they were known to have the best sense of smell of any living creature. His presence alone was enough to keep the predators at bay, and they had a healthy respect for his strength and powers. And when Eleanor noticed the pharaoh dragon, she tried to lure back home, and she made a trail of cupcakes leading to the front of her porch, and unfortunately for all humans, the baby dragons developed a sweet tooth. And since he was the alpha of the little baby dragons, what he did, the others emulated, and in no time the town was overrun by little baby pharaoh dragons, and they came in town in search for trees, cattle, and chicken. Thankfully, when the pharaoh dragons grew up, they preferred to hunt, and they outgrew such childish habits, and they usually left town before becoming a giant nuisance. And still, the small ones were more than enough to convince a good number of the humans to pack up and leave. It was this Praga that he returned to this day, and by now, most who knew he as a child had departed, and the Berserker station there only knew rumors about his powers. And he rode into the town on a sunny day, and the sky was a lovely pure blue, and there was not a cloud up there, and from time to time a soft wind would pass by. And he stopped about half a kilometer away from the town, and he frowned when he saw the gates surrounding it, and he pondered a moment to make certain he was in the right spot, and eventually he shrugged his shoulders and he continued on his way. It should not surprise you that this town changed so much, said a voice on top of him, and he removed his eye to see what was perched on top of it, and it was one of the 7 pudgy dragons that operated in this area, and they said to relay messages from the township to Veragerum. And the dragon continued, "It should be safe for you to return. Anyone knows that they should avoid messing with you. And in other news, there is a scary-looking pharaoh dragon looking for you, and since he says you're present, he has been lurking about. And to take care of this problem before entering town, the last thing we need is a fight surrounded by many weaklings." And he, after relaying this information, the Pudgy Dragon went on his way, and apparently the Berserkers have been expecting his return for quite some time, and the fear of his presence would trigger another bloodbath, and whenever he was around, bad things would happen, and they have been monitoring his movements ever since he resurfaced, and he heard the message with grim amusement, and when the dragon went away, he smiled, and based on his smile, he had not understood a single word, or so we fancied, or simply his mind was elsewhere so that he didn't hear the message. And he went on ahead as if nothing had been said, and at a certain point he dismounted, and he stroked his head and said gently, "Go on ahead without me." "How articulate you have become," commented Horsey sarcastically. "Perhaps," said he. And this was his current answer whenever he did not understand anything, or whenever he wanted to sound more smart than he was, or maybe he was smart and he was just playing the fool. It's so hard to know with certain folks. It was certainly an improvement from his baby talk, and his new articulation was more of a defense system, and most of the time his answers were simply educated guesses or rehearsed lines to questions. He had developed enough common sense to avoid the and the speech pattern from humans most of the time, and as instructed, Halsey trotted to the gates of Praga, and he made his way towards the nearest forest, and a large male adored pharaoh dragon waited for him, and this was the same pharaoh dragon that he used to spar with. And due to his constant motion, the pharaoh dragon was smaller than the usual males of his kind, and he was only 6 meters long and 1 meter high, and what he lacked in size he made up in grit. His chest was wider than usual, and he was muscular all over, and his legs and arms were longer and stronger, and this pharaoh dragon was built for strength, speed, and mobility. The dragon rested his head lazily on his foreclaw, and since he was a fool, he could lay peacefully next to the deer and the antelope. And he showed his fangs to Ahi when he saw him, and he smiled and he waved at the dragon. The pair had identical-looking razor-sharp teeth, and when the dragon saw Ahi again, the bloodlust had completely dissipated, and he had done a lot of growing up over the years, and he climbed on top of the nose of the pharaoh dragon, and the pair stayed looking at the birds flying in the sky, and there was peace, and they were at peace at one with nature. And he reached into his pocket and took out a fragment of the duke's crown, and he took a bite from it, and he offered the rest to the dragon. The dragon opened his mouth slightly, and he allowed Ahi to feed him with his hand, and Ahi gave a deep sigh of relief when the dragon did not bite him. He got off the dragon's nose, and like back when he was a child, he hugged the dragon, and like by then the dragon bit him into his shoulder, and any other person who had died without half their limbs, and Ahi laughed like a maniac, and his glasses turned into a pout when he realized his clothing was ruined. And swiftly his left side regenerated, and the dragon munched at his flesh with contempt, and the special stomach was strong enough to digest his flesh and his special corrosive blood. And he lingered a little, and he told him something was amiss in town, and he removed his torn noble attire, and he sat down and rested his head on his fist, and the dragon called around him, and he was looking at him with his bright ruby eyes, and he got up suddenly and dusted himself off, and he put on his hand behind his long curly red hair, and he held his hair up as if his body glowed like a burning sun for a second, and when the light dissipated, he had generated for himself a simple peasant attire, and he was composed of simple brown pants and a clean long white shirt and a straw hat. And he left the outskirts of the fort and walked up the gates, and Horsey was standing there before the gates, and he was sitting so nearby grass, trying his best to pretend to be a normal horse. The berserkers in the guard towers were eyeing that horse with suspicion, and he took the reins of the horse in his mouth, and he waved at the guard. The first guard whispered to his companion, "He has returned. More the pity," sighed the other guard. And the first guard exclaimed, "Lower the gates." He rode into town, and he patted his lip when he noticed the changes. The barracks were an interesting addition, and the farms in the left side had been torn down and converted into barracks. The further ground had been laid flat and turned into a training ground, and they had everything from archery range to horse stables, etc. The barracks were made of solid stone, and how the houses on the right side of the barrack had been converted to farm. And at its center was Iago's manor, the only familiar place. The berserkers liked to have a single landlord managing the farms, and it was always assured the maximum profit or something like that. And when the time for the harvest came, the head slaves were brought from the capital to work in the field. Iago did employ some permanent farmers, and they were in charge of managing irrigation projects, crops breeding, and horticulture. And in the farms grew maize, millet, rice, and cotton, and the minor horticulture grew palms, rubber, and banana trees. And this government more intent on keeping the feral dragons from munching on the main crops, because the feral dragons, they prefer bananas and rubber. They eat rubber. Outside the town, the berserkers raised sheep and also hunted and fished in the forest, and during breeding season they were also stationed there to collect dragon eggs. I had noted these and many other changes, and the town looked completely new to him, and while he rode along, the feral baby dragon settled in town, started following after Horsey. Horsey ignored them, although he neighed when a month-old baby dragon clawed its way up his leg, and the dragon was as large as a full-grown cat, and had Horsey been a regular horse, he would have been spooked. However, the manor cat-like scratches had barely healed, and this tiny baby climbed on top of his head, and she nestled there, while she tanned herself under the burning sun, and the little dragon fell asleep while being rocked by the gentle rhythm of Horsey's trot. He looked in all directions as he rode along, and aside from the dragons, he could not see any familiar face. His sign was sniffing the air, and he smiled when he caught a whiff of a few familiar scents, and then he curled his lip and said, "I'm hungry." He put his hand inside his pocket, and he took out what remained of the duke's crown, and here what remained, which was a piece of gold plate and 3 crown jewels, and one of the jewels he took and waved it over the baby dragon's head, and without opening her eyes, the little one snapped the jewel away, and she enjoyed its taste the same way that children enjoy eating candy, and she was done enjoying it, she crushed it beneath her fangs. Alright, that's it for now. Bye-bye and God bless.